Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry. I am delighted to have here on Zoom recording this episode with me, Hailey Thomas. Welcome, Hailey. Hailey is dedicated mom, adventurer, entrepreneur. She has 6 years of experience in developing, selling, and delivering information products, done-for-you services, digital courses, consulting projects. Hailey works with solopreneurs with small teams, and her podcast is called 1 Year From Now. Welcome, Hailey. Please tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me on. This is very exciting because I listen to the podcast. I feel like what's the saying, like long-time listener, first-time caller.
That's so fun.
So yes, my name is Hailey. I am all of the things that you shared. I primarily work with entrepreneurs who are, I'll say, career entrepreneurs, meaning they might have more than one business asset at a time, and they are developing perhaps apps or I don't know, own websites or web applications or building courses or what have you. The medium doesn't matter. What matters is people that know they want to be builders and makers over their career. And so I help entrepreneurs navigate having a career as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as someone who's developing into their leadership skills as they have a small team or grow a small team.
Yeah, very exciting. That sounds so interesting. It's like a little bit of the world I left behind in IT, which I know it's not necessarily IT, but it's like I work with a lot of builders, people who build things, hands-on, like in creating products for the world. That must be so fascinating. But we're here to talk about your divorce journey, your dating journey, and I didn't hear most of it because I was like, I wanted to hear it in real time. But the little we did talk about on our call was the fact that your divorce was amicable, which is rare. For the most part, most divorces are not amicable. And as I thought about it, because I was like preparing for this, I was like, why is that? What goes on with that? And my thoughts were sort of like, well, one, especially if we're socialized as a woman, or even in general, there's not like, I guess, a social permission to divorce. And I think sometimes that plays into maybe the need for a divorce, the need to have an ending, to go your separate ways. And I just really admire couples like you and your ex who have been able to navigate that. And I really just wanted to start by talking about the thinking behind that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, our divorce was amicable, not fun, not enjoyable, but not without, tears and all the things, but amicable. I came to my ex last December and said, hey, I'd like to talk about divorce, like getting a divorce. The year prior to that, so the whole year of, I'm like, what was last year? 2020, earlier 2020. I had been asking myself and taking as much responsibility as I could for, frankly, my life in general, but my marriage playing a huge role in my life. And so, why am I so unhappy? Why am I so, unsettled? And where are the places that I continue to make concessions that is creating more unhappiness and frustration for myself? And not even to do with my ex-partner, but to do with myself. For instance, the kind of relationship spiral that you can get into if one person is doing most of the house care and the child care and also working and all of that, right? It gets a spiral of, I wish they would help me, but no one else is going to do it if I don't do it. And this resentment, and it just goes round and round. And part of, just me taking responsibility for my part is like, oh, I don't have to participate in this loop. Actually, can just I can just not do it.
Yeah.
It's okay. And people are going to be without underwear and without t-shirts and where's this and that.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out at that moment. Right. And so just taking the beginning of the year, taking as much agency to myself of like, what is mine? What are the things circumstantially I can change? Like, who does the laundry? What are the things that I guess I may be blaming my ex for, like when we were together, what are the things I'm blaming my dissatisfaction with my existence on you, because you're not romantic and you don't like these things and
Mhm.
sure, and you don't have the same values as me. When in reality, I can have all those things inside. It could have had all those things inside my marriage, just within myself. Right?
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
separate from him. So after taking kind of all that responsibility and really getting in alignment with myself, the question came, does this relationship add to that or take away from that? And what we
Yeah.
kept finding, he and I both kept finding over the years, so this wasn't even new to the last few years, but we were together for a decade. We
Mm.
kept having this conversation of this actually isn't quite working for either of us, but
Mm.
just backgrounds we came from and just nobody tells you or teaches you how to be in a relationship
Yep.
well. There's a lot of I think for us, a lot of enmeshment, or a lot of just oh, well, if he doesn't want to, then I can't. Or if I'm
Mhm.
not going to do it, then
Yeah.
I'm going to, right?
Yeah.
And as I kind of got my feet under me and got in alignment with myself, I realized this relationship was not in alignment with the person that I want to be, that I am.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. And I just had this conversation with a colleague of ours, Amber,
Mm.
who's also coming on the podcast, and we talked about the same thing, sort of like just our programming. Like
Yes.
basically from the time you are a baby or one or two, the toys you get given when you're being socialized as a woman, we're running these programs. We're running these programs about what life looks like as a woman.
Mhm.
We're running these programs about what we can have on our own,
Yes.
like who we can be. So like when you said, can I have romance in my life? Can I have these experiences in my life if my partner isn't interested in them? Women are socialized to be like, no, you can't. So even if we
Mhm.
even if we physically can, even if we have the money and we have the time and we have, our girlfriends who will go on with us on this trip, we just won't. And so
Yeah.
that's just really eye-opening to be able to just come out of those rigid boxes of how we've been programmed to say, is it true that because of my partner, I can't dash, whatever it is?
Yes. Yes. And I have more thoughts on that as I've, started dating now. Now that programming has come up, it didn't like magically disappear, right? Like it's
Mhm.
to continue to question, but yeah, that's how we, so, when I said to him, it was in December, I'd like to have a conversation about getting a divorce. And I like to position it as he and I's relationship are changing to co-parents. We were in
Mm.
two people who are co-parenting together. And he lived here at my house, which was our house, up until honestly, like a month ago. Right?
Yeah.
A year of navigating this major shift in our relationship, navigating
Mhm.
together for our kid, and then also just still being there for each other in a way, just navigating like the housing market, or navigating,
Yeah. Yeah.
place, or like, gosh, don't banks suck? Yeah, they do. And like those conversations.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like you said, even like when you are out of the relationship, because almost like, oh, my relationship with this person changes, and then I have to take care of myself. Most of the time it's like we don't give ourselves the space to think about those things until you're single. And
Yeah.
then for a lot of people, then you get into another relationship and like
Mm-hmm.
it all comes up again. And I think I've said it on the podcast before. It's like that process of dating yourself, it continues even after you're partnered.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's actually what helped me transition quite a bit, is that I saw 3 different therapists, not all at the same time, but 3 therapists. I hired, 2 life coaches, one specifically for marriage, one just for my general. Like I
Mm.
was putting in the hours,
Yeah.
we even got to that divorce conversation. And so like through this process, I know myself quite well now. And so in a way I was like dating and working to understand myself before the marriage
Mhm.
ended, this kind of middle ground. So we had um we used a moderator, or what
Mediator,
mediator, sorry, a
or
mediator.
yeah. Or
Yeah.
arbitrator. And I think apparently there's more than one kind. You can have an arbitrator, you can have a mediator. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Learned that recently.
Yeah. So we just used a mediator. We didn't, have lawyers or anything, because again, our intention was, how do we move through this so that everyone is as okay as a relative term, but is as okay.
Mhm.
And so our mediator was really surprised. And she was really like, huh, so you all are just gonna we're just gonna write these two lists and nobody's gonna fight, or you don't, huh? And so we ended up getting honestly like half of our deposit back, because she was like, it just didn't take that long.
Love it. Oh my gosh,
Right? I'm
it's
like,
so good.
mad about those $2,000 that we got back.
Yeah.
But so that middle ground of actually doing the work of divorcing and actually doing the work of separating finances and separating, instead of we're both living in the master bedroom or in the primary bedroom, now I live upstairs and he lives downstairs in the house, and
Mhm.
navigating the childcare. Just honestly, it was strange. Like, it was strange, and it is amicable and good in that we can, like, hey man, I need to talk about you about who's cleaning this bathroom, because I'm not, that's, that conversation. And yeah, just trying to transition our relationship in the middle time was very strange.
Yeah.
And again, strange maybe isn't a great word. It was just like new territory.
Yeah, and unusual. Probably you may not have seen a lot of models of that kind of situation, because it's like death do you part. You are like one and enmeshed until one of you dies.
Yeah. And like and we go to the same church. Like all his mom and all his aunties follow me online. Like our lives are very much enmeshed. And so navigating that in a way that like honors me. And that, I think, it was the hardest thing for me, was consistently choosing to honor myself before anything else.
Yeah.
Really hard. Because I hadn't been doing that up until, the last couple of years, but honoring me and making sure I listen to myself and, follow the gut feelings of like, actually, that makes me very uncomfortable or whatever.
Mhm.
And then going, okay, second to that is, how do we make sure everybody is okay,
It's
or have
okay.
the resources they need?
Yeah. Did you struggle with feeling or thoughts about this is selfish or this is harming others?
Like that's my life coaches earn their money. They earn their dollars. I had that thought so often because, again, it's all the things we've been saying about programming and, particular religious communities, that is death till you part. There's no abuse here. There's no any reason to get a divorce.
Reason.
I want it, right? Like, reason. I actually made myself I called it the divorce decision matrix, because I was having that thought so often of like, you're selfish and you've destroyed this thing for your child, of, single home. And, he's not a bad guy. He certainly was not abusive or mean to anything, like all these things. But I had a matrix that I used that was like questions I could ask myself that if I answer, yes to, this is still the correct choice, basically. And I don't remember the exact questions at this moment, but it was kind of along the lines of, am I allowed to be in full expression of myself?
Yeah.
Is there room for that? Can I trust myself with the decision I'm making? A lot of it, and I wish I could remember the exact questions, because a lot of them were just focused on things that I could control, things that had nothing to do with him, nothing to do with his behavior change. Because I really wanted to, like, for a while there, was trying to find a reason to get divorced, of like, well, he doesn't do anything around the house. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Like, that's not even true, right? So like,
yeah, and there is a benefit to just having a human in your home, even if they do nothing.
yes,
Like, not saying that that's a reason to be, but like, if you have just a social connection is a benefit if it's, safe and all that. So yeah, I agree with you, but that isn't, is that enough for you
right,
as the individual?
right. And that's the question I kept kind of coming back to, and having full ownership of the decision, I think, was really important for amicable divorce, because there were so many options of having to tell our kid together. That was awful. That was terrible. I'd never want to have that conversation again in my life. Our son he was 6 at the time. I never want to do that again, right? Having to tell our family members who love us so much, and we're realizing like I wasn't just losing my ex, but also my sister-in-laws and, you know, my mother-in-law and people I love so much.
Yeah.
So I kept having to ask, like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And it kept coming back to, I'm going to own this decision for myself. Yes. And I can trust myself to be with all the things that are going to come out of this decision, good and bad.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Like, you have no idea just how powerful it is to be able to be the person that gives you permission.
Yeah. Yes, because no one else was going to do that.
Yes. And we're conditioned to look for that permission elsewhere. And there's another thing that I think women experience, at least some of my clients experience this, where I call it, because I experienced it too, wanting to come up smelling like roses.
Yes. Yes.
Like, if this thing's going to happen, I want to make sure everybody knows it's not my fault. And that thought creates so much drama and so much chaos in the process.
It's just, yes, so much like posturing and like just, you know,
digging up all of the hurts instead of like taking responsibility for the decision like you did and saying, you know what, you may have done all these things, but even if you hadn't, this would be the best decision for me.
Yeah. And it makes it sound like I'm like, oh, it was really, no, I also had that thought of like, how can I organize this so that it makes sense to other people? And before that, with the reality of it doesn't have to make sense for anybody but me.
Yeah, it is unlikely to make sense. Divorce is one of those things in the current age. Hopefully a generation later, it will be different. In this current age and stage and most communities, it doesn't make sense to most people. So it's futile to even try.
Yeah. And I know that now, or feel better about it now, but baby, that first 9 months was rough.
Yeah. Well done. Obviously, you did it in such a clean way internally. That, like, my guess is you're at peace. You have peace around everything that happened.
Yeah, I do. Even the hard things, even the things that hurt, even the, all the uncertainty. Because, by the way, people don't talk about how divorce is not like, it is not a single decision. It's like thousands of small decisions.
Yep.
And by that, it's even, who's going to be the mediator, and when is the court date, and what is this, and what happens to the kid, and even my ex just moved out, but he took, not my crock pot, but he took our crock pot. So it's just little like, do I get another one? How often do I use? It's just like, decisions to be made.
Yeah, I talk about the secondary. I didn't coin the word. I read it in a book that I read during my divorce. I don't remember which one. All the secondary losses. So you have the primary loss of the relationship, and then you have a ton of secondary losses that nobody sees. Loss of identity, the loss of your routine. I remember walking to a new Walmart, and I didn't know where anything was in that Walmart. Took me 2 hours for a 20-minute grocery run in the middle of grieving and anxiety and devastation and money scarcity, and like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly that. It's exactly hundreds of tiny decisions and losses and all that to contend with, that I didn't, I wasn't anticipating, but I'm so glad I did all this work and got myself well supported, because I could navigate those. I don't know that I would say like, oh, I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't get supported, but also I'm really glad I didn't have to do it by myself. I'm really glad that I had been really well supported and really well, like, kind of examined myself and was able to have my own back and had practices of coming back to myself and grounding and all of that for those moments of like, crap, I got to buy a new toothbrush because now his toothbrush is at his dad's house, and frickin' what size toothbrush does he need and which flavor to just.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the divorce. I feel like divorce is a good thing overall. I'm just like, listen, nobody wants a divorce. If somebody's getting it it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I like that POV. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's talk dating. This is the fun part. So, I don't know, where do you want to begin? Do you want to just tell the story? Do you want to talk about your thinking going into it and how you approached it? I just want to hear all the things.
Yes. Okay. So I actually do want to talk about my thoughts approaching dating and then being in a relationship, because I'm in a relationship now.
Woohoo!
Um, he's probably going to listen to this and it's going to be funny. But in dating, because I've been in business for myself for so long, there is an amount of like marketing, as in like just presenting myself and feeling very comfortable. Like, here's just what this thing is, and here's, how I can talk about it to make sure that the right people interact with this thing. And also a level of rejection that I'm very used to. I really enjoy dating. And this is like, people are like, the apps suck and people suck and everything was, I had a good old time. And I got ghosted. I got stood up for dates. I got like, it, to me, it felt more like each one of these were all these like little adventures of like me watching myself date and me watching myself, make choices or say this or that. And, oh, how did I feel after that? And also good looking men were buying me drinks. Like, I'm not mad about that. Like,
right? I'm out of the house. Like, I got something happened that motivated me to get out of the house instead of sitting in my sweatpants.
yes. Like it just, and I had dates at, bars and restaurants and coffee shops. And I also did a lot of just going to new places. So one of my favorite things to do, I call it my hot girl summer. But one of my favorite things to do was to just take a book and go sit at a new restaurant or at a new bar in a town, just, somewhere in an hour near me, just, looking at Google Maps, and this place makes cool virgin cocktails. So I'm just gonna take a book and go kick it at the bar. And I met so many interesting people, like cute guys, but also just like new people, like the new people, new stories, new adventures. Like I had a great time. So that's my little, it was not like on the apps for long. Probably.
Yeah. How long were you on the apps?
Maybe 4 months.
Okay, nice.
Months. Yeah, it wasn't very but that was my kind of general vibe, is like, oh, I have no idea. Let's see what happens. And I've had all of the dating things.
So, do you know how many dates you went on, like that you actually went out and met people?
Yeah. I want to say like 8, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Let's say 8, because I got stood up twice, so those didn't count.
I think if you got out of the house and you went and it was, I would, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll say 10, because that night and this is just a great dating story, but that night, the restaurant I was supposed to meet this person at, the owner was walking around and saw me just kind of like sitting and looking and texting. And he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think I got stood up." And he's like, "Oh my God, that's so terrible." Brought me a fresh cocktail, sat me at the bar, and was like, "You all just get her whatever she needs tonight." Oh, great night. It was a great time. So I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, that is so cool. That's such a great story. So I'm going to ask a few nitty-gritty questions. So you had 10 dates where you made a plan to be somewhere. Did you have any dates that were just like, oh my God, I wish I had caught this earlier, like caught this about this person and not be sitting in front of this person right now?
Yes. So I gave all my people like nicknames as I was talking with my friends about them. So we'll call this person was called the Professor. And we got really into chatting online. He was a writer and a teacher. And so like really into like chatting and, getting really, just having like really pleasant conversation, but just like lots of interaction, because we couldn't actually see each other for a week. So the whole week we're just back and forth and tell me about your previous relationship and, what are your thoughts on this book and whatever. And then we met in person and I was like, oh, I really wish I hadn't spent that much time developing a connection emotionally, because physically this is not working.
Yeah.
And I was the one that was like, hey, should we have a second date just to see? Because we were both kind of like, this is a little, and he was like, what, y'all, I'm hot. I'll say it. I'm a good looking woman.
You're tall. How tall are you?
I'm 6'1". Yeah.
6'1". Yeah. And so was it his height or was it just his general like physique? What was it?
It was just a general like physical compatibility mismatch. So he was like a decade older than me. Not a
Mm.
decade, but like several years older than me. But he's very much like, cargo pants and a Patagonia kind of like very relaxed vibe. And we're meeting at a bookstore, which again is a cute date. Love a good book, and he's a writer and all that, and I love reading. But I'm like wearing this really cute summer dress and like,
Yeah. So he was like a professor, like he was all the way into that stereotype.
yes, very much so. And it was just we were just like, oh, we have two different ideas about what a first date is. Oh, okay. I see. This is not. So it's just like a sense of incompatibility versus like, oh,
Yeah. But it was so I would say, so I think I guess in the way I was thinking about that's still a good date.
yeah, we still spent like 4 hours talking. Like it was still a
Yeah.
date. It was the first time that I had gotten like rejected where I was like, oh, should we? And he was
Mm,
like,
love it.
and then yeah, and then just also again it's just watching myself and going like, oh,
Mhm.
do next time get heavily invested this way. But I didn't
Yeah.
have any like judgments about myself. It felt like and marketing might sound like fake or like there's a some sort of cover, but that's how I feel about marketing. Is just it's just testing. It's just like,
Yeah.
does this message connect? Does this connect with the person I want to connect with? And so I was thinking about
Mhm.
that same way of like, oh, does this connect? Does this not connect? And so
Right. Or does it, I think the way, because I use a lot of like what I've learned about marketing my own business to help my clients. And the way I say to them is I was like, there is a particular siren call to the particular man that you were looking for.
yeah,
And if your profile or your communication does not have that in it, it will call in a different person.
yes. And so I, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing because I ended up with the person I'm with now, but there's a lot of I say I'm a Slytherin because I love Harry Potter, and I also say I'm an Enneagram 3 because I'm a personal development nut, and
Yes, those are so good. I'm a 3 too, by the way.
that makes sense. Honestly, that tracks.
I was so surprised by that. I thought I was like a 2, like a nice, loving, nurturing. I just love all the people. No, apparently I've just been like codependent for like half my life. I'm actually a 3.
Listen, trauma will affect, I'm sure someone's done a study on trauma and the Enneagrams and how they affect what number you present as.
Yeah, yeah. I did my human design recently, and that's actually been a little more helpful in calling out the parts of my personality that were affected by trauma or conditioning, and the parts that, like have been consistent. I've been able to keep consistent. So I love the Enneagram. That's still my favorite personality test, but human design has been like more practical for me.
Yes, I think the Enneagram, because it kind of is under that pop psychology umbrella, but I think the thing that, the Enneagram or the way I use Harry Potter, houses, like Hogwarts house,
Yes.
or, the things that kind of go under that is it provides language where people typically don't have language to talk about themselves and how they operate.
Mhm.
So I think it
Yeah.
is just valuable for someone to go, oh, I tested as a 3. I'm not a 3. And then they go
Mhm.
and tell you all about themselves. They weren't going to pull those things unless they had something to measure it against.
Yeah.
So I think it's extremely valuable in that regard, even though it's a pop psychology sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, it's pop psychology, but we like it. It's
And I
okay.
like it. Yes. And I like it. I'm here for it. So yes, I was still in this mode of dating and exploring, because that's really what it was for me when I met my person. And we continue to joke about it now that I'm like, how did we get here? We've been dating for like 9 months now.
I
Like
love it.
here, because my intention was just like, oh, I'm just showing up to every date or time we spend together or hang out or whatever. Just like, oh, do I want to do this today? Yes, today.
Mhm.
We are 9 months later, but I wasn't trying to be in a relationship.
Yeah. Well, looking back, since you are in a relationship, when you look back at his profile, or I mean, I don't know if you're like my husband and I, we like screenshotted our profiles. We have them like, we look at them every so often. Oh, look at us, If you think back to his profile or you think back to your first date,
Mhm.
can you see the signs? Like, then of where you were going to be later?
I don't think so, because I really like the vibe I had when I was dating early on was just like, oh, I don't know, I have no thoughts about this. Like I think I told him, because I love this about him. He asks really good questions. But one of the things he asked me early on was just, what are you looking for? I said, lucky you, I made a list because I'm that person. But I said, like, I don't want to be remarried. I don't really want a long-term relationship. I don't want to cohabitate or mix finances. I want someone who can have experiential intimacy with. I want someone to practice and to have, delight and romantic expressions of love and care with, like to kind of play in that. And I want someone who I can practice cycles of like harmony, conflict, and repair with. Like these are still things I have. Like, so here are the things I want from a relationship. Here are the things I don't want.
Yeah.
But that was like month 2, maybe, that we started talking about that. Initially, I think so here's something for your listeners. I completely judge people whether or not on how they responded to my Bumble first messages. And I always send puns and bad jokes as first messages. Like 100%, I only send puns. Like, that's it. And if they respond and they're down, then I'm like, great, we can have a conversation. If they're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, next convo, we're done.
Yeah.
So
that's on brand for you.
Yeah.
So just as a caveat, like, and that's always the thing is like, and I tell my people, like, your qualifying questions or it should be directly, like, what, it doesn't matter what it is, there's no formula, but it needs to be whatever is going to speak to your people.
Yes. And so that's, kind of the marketing of it, of the, like, I love bad jokes. Oh my God. And my partner now will send me bad jokes and I just key, like I've never, and these are terrible puns and jokes. They're just like very not cool. But he, in his profile, was just talking about how he professionally is a psych nurse. And so I made like something like a dumb Freud pun and he responded with like another one. And I was like,
so good. Oh yeah. See, that was the sign. I mean, of course you weren't looking for a sign then, but like, I mean, come on.
Yeah. And so we talked about books, because that's another thing that is important to me. And then on our first date, he asked me a good hypothetical question. And so some of my other values, I didn't have language for this then, but some of my values now are curiosity and like contribution and kind of exploration and things like that. And so he had asked a hypothetical, like, if you could be, I forgot what the question was, but if you could be, would you rather be 13 again or have, $5 million tomorrow? And I was just like, ooh, that's a good question. Playing in that and having those kind of mental or very intellectually stimulating conversations that are fun and kind of silly, but we can, go deep and here's, our thoughts on all these things. So on our first date, we talked about, that hypothetical question, but he told me about his family and told me about his experiences, moving around and all sorts of stuff that I was just like, oh, I'd like to spend more time with this person. That'd be great.
Yeah. Amazing. I just love it. I love it. I love the way you talk about the relationship and what you guys experience together.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think if we might get to this on its own, but I do definitely want to talk about my experience of being in a relationship now as someone who, the expression I use, like, has my feet under me, kind of like I know who I am as an individual, and I'm much better at communicating what I want for myself versus who I was 5, 10, even 2 or 3 years ago. It just feels so different, and it's a different person. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, it's all different.
Right. No, but that's a really good, I mean, that's a really good topic in the sense that, like, there's the person and that you are communicating your needs to, and then there's your ability to even know and communicate your needs. So like, how has that, what did it look like before and what does it look like now?
Oh, there was no communication before, or not. I wouldn't say no. It wasn't until I was ready to like blow up, or I've cried in the bathroom 3 times about this, because I did not have language, confidence, or the skill to say, to be at odds with someone without being like in conflict with someone. You know what I mean? Like having different, maybe conflict, but not be arguing. Like I didn't have any of those skills.
Yeah.
Versus now, as I've built those skills through the divorce process and through advocating for myself and listening to myself, I'm much better at it. It only takes me a day or two to go back and say like, hey, so this thing happened 3 days ago. I was not okay with it. Can we talk about it? Or here's the thing I'm afraid of. Can we talk about it? I also didn't have understanding of things like my attachment style that played into my desire to not rock the boat at all. And my like, don't say anything at all because this could go away. Versus now having my own back and, having all the same anxiety. I didn't even know relationship anxiety was a thing until I was just like, oh baby, do I got it bad? But we can like talk about it. And I can say like, hey, this thing is making me feel super anxious. Or honestly, I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot out about this particular thing because I had this thought.
Yeah.
Can you with some reassurance today? Because I'm not okay. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What shifted? Like, was there like a set of thoughts that you developed around that? Or was it like what was and there's usually not just one turning point, but what were some of those shifts that you made in your thinking?
There's 2 of them that I think pretty regularly. One is I will never not give myself what I need ever again. Like that's just not even, that's like a standard of existence now. Even if it seems dumb or silly or it's inconvenient or it might upset other people or I'm tired, it doesn't matter. I will not break kind of integrity or like break that relationship with myself ever again.
Yeah.
If that's the case, therefore we got to have this conversation. So then we can, phone a friend, we could Google the amount of things I've Googled on the internet of like, how do I ask my boyfriend to, I'm not even gonna lie, I straight up do that because for me, I refuse to break integrity with myself so deeply like I did before again. Like
I totally resonate with that. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thought was just, I don't want to end up kind of enmeshed with another person again, the way I was before. And I don't think my current boyfriend and I talked about, what are we doing if I don't actually want a long-term relationship and also to be living with someone? What are we doing? And so I shared my positioning now is I do want to be monogamish, mostly monogamous, but live solo. Like super happy to buy him the house on either side of me. He can live across the street. We could like, listen, we'll hook it up. We can get a duplex, but I want it alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just being like protective of my boundaries, even though it feels really good and safe and, we love each other and he's got a little person and I've got a little person and would it be easier for everyone if we just, got to nesting and then, the thing that comes after that typically is financial meshing, all the things. Yeah, it probably would. And also a thing I don't do anymore is break integrity with myself. So
yeah. I mean, and when you say, would it be easier? Maybe.
That's true.
I wouldn't even say a probably. I would say a maybe. Like, because there is like, I'm at the beginning stages of pursuing a minimalist lifestyle. Very beginning stages, y'all. Please no.
She said, don't hold me to nothing. This is early.
Super early. But like, there's something about having space that is good for us. So, and we all, and I think this is the other thing that I think people don't realize is that we all have varying needs for space. So some people are just built to need more space between them and the people that they love.
Yeah.
And then some people are built to have less space. Like we can be all up in each other's everything and it's fine. It's not a problem. And that understanding yourself and that need for you. So while it might be easier for some people to husband and wife and kids and everybody lives in the same house, might be easier because of their temperaments and the combination. And then there's some people who are just like, it's never going to work. It doesn't matter. Biologically, their brain, they can create a whole bunch of new thoughts, but that circumstance does not work for the way that they're built.
Yeah. And I think as you were talking, I was just thinking like, oh, what is it for me? I think in general, I'm a person that likes to solve, and I like to, I recognize that I'm a person that like, homesteading or homemaking is very important to me in a lot of ways. And so my home is generally very calm, and like spend a lot of time working with, you know, the relationship that I have with my kid and forging a relationship with his kid and with him, and like just nurturing a really kind of solid environment. And I think it would benefit everyone to be in the same building together. I think what it is that it seems logical. Like my brain's like, oh, here's a problem, air quotes, that you can, if you would just get over yourself.
Yeah.
And then having to talk back to like, okay, but I don't want that. And also, even if it's something that could benefit all four of us really well, I'm not going to step over that boundary for myself regardless. And so like, again, he and I talked about this, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like we're kind of consistently talking about, you know, the conditioning of why wouldn't I want to put everyone in the same house and do all the happy family in the suburbs with a dog and picket fence vibes when I could. It's actually the same thing but the opposite of my divorce, right? Like technically, why couldn't I have stayed? Well, why couldn't I build this? And like I don't want to.
Yeah. And I don't want to is a good enough reason. I know this is like heresy.
Yeah.
But I don't want to is a good enough reason. Yeah, it really is. I really resonated with how you phrased something that I have also experienced. I called it meeting my own needs because I did go through like codependency recovery, and they called it like meeting your own needs, reparenting. But you said, I will never not give myself what I need. Is that how you said it? And I love that because in teaching dating to divorced women, it's almost like that's the mindset I'm constantly trying to give them. But it always sounds weird because I'm telling them, when you go out and if you sit with yourself and say, I do want a relationship in this lifetime, it is your job to meet that need.
Yes.
Which is so backward from like, what we're talking, which is like, no, you need a relationship. You have to have a relationship, but somebody has to come and grant it to you.
Yes.
Somebody bestows the favor upon you.
You have to wait until someone comes to you from the ether. I don't know.
Yeah. And so I know one of the challenges I have is really teaching that, no, you don't control someone else. You don't make someone else come into a relationship with you. You don't chase or pursue, but you go on this journey where you're like, this is a need that I have decided I want to fulfill in my life because of the way I'm built, the choices I want, the life I want. It is my job to go out and find it and meet it and bring it in. And it's not the job of the men on the apps to show up a certain way. No. It's not the job of the apps to serve up the men. It's not any of those things. It's up to me.
Yeah. And I think that this is where my entrepreneurial training has come in handy, because I've never thought I can't have a successful business. First of all, I've never thought that, period. But like, it's not my customers or my clients' responsibility for me to have it. Like, that's not their job. Like, I've never, no, I show up as the person that I want to be. I do a good job of communicating the messages to bring people closer to me who want to be. I organize my offers so that they, have something to respond to and a way to engage with me, but it's not their job to to do that. And so I think about dating and this relationship the same way. And again, I have to I'm much better at business than I am at real life, by the way, y'all. So I'm saying things very confidently, but I have to like rework these thoughts like every week, honestly. But yeah, it's not his responsibility to make me feel good in this relationship. It's not his responsibility to make sure I have all of my needs met in this relationship. It's not his responsibility to uphold my boundaries for myself in this relationship. Those are all my job. His job is to like give me kisses and cuddles and like whatever, his job is to show up in the fullness of himself while I'm showing up in the fullness of myself, and then we decide how we want to roll together. But that's not.
Oh, but that's so perfect. I love the way you said that. Right? Like his job is just to be him, and this is where the responsibility is on you to choose the him. Where he can just show up as himself, and that's exactly what you want.
That's a thing that I respect him so much for. We had this conversation a couple nights ago where he was like, did I ever fall out of like, early boyfriend or like cutesy honeymoon phase? I'm like, not really, because you were really yourself. You were really yourself early on. In some ways, if I maybe was looking for my forever person and my husband, then there are probably decisions or yellow flags, whatever, that would have been like, oh no, because he's not like perfect enough. Mind you, I was just showing up to like, oh, do I want to do this today? Great. Then I'm going to engage today.
Yeah.
He actually did a great job of just being his full self, the great parts, the real messy parts, all of it. Get to just decide. I think guys in general are better at doing that than we are.
Guys generally show up as themselves because they're conditioned to do that. And I think this is the disconnect that I often always have to remind my clients about, is that, no, he's showing up as he is. Are you choosing what you see?
Are you choosing what you see? And then you have to hold yourself accountable to like, then there's nobody to be mad at but you, right? But yourself. And again, it's not to be mad at, but just it's the responsibility, the ownership again. Yeah, I'm choosing this. And at some point, if it does not serve me or starts harming me, then I will not be choosing this. And I can trust myself to not, to make that decision. But today I'm choosing. So you're all the way in or we're all the way out, and you pick one today. But yeah, I think there's a lot to I tell my person repeatedly, probably the greatest gift of this relationship is how much introspection I've had to do just in navigating the, dating into the the honeymoon phase, and then to the we're meeting each other's families and meeting each other's kid and all of that. Like there's so much here's a fresh bout of brain drama and trauma.
100%. Yeah. It doesn't really end.
No,
it doesn't really end. And this is where choosing the person you want to navigate drama with is so good.
Yes. And that's such a different POV, I think, for relationships than you're choosing someone to have a happily ever after with, versus I'm choosing someone or choosing a situation that will allow me to continue to learn and continue to evolve as an individual. And that's those feel anyway very different. And that second one is the one where I'm like, oh, I could do that. I could keep choosing that for a long time. I think I had in my mind, long-term relationships are, yes, you find someone you want to be with, and then everything just slowly atrophies. And I'm like, that's terrible. No, I don't want that.
Yep, it is terrible. And that's the line we've been fed. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to do it. But then there's also the line where you got to do it, or else you have no value. But really what it is it's sort of it's like choosing the weather that suits you. Do you like it cold? Do you like it warm? Do you like the tropics? Do you like humidity? And in the same way, we don't blame the weather we just like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I could move to California. I could move to Maine. Knowing yourself, you get to say, okay, and when I move to Maine, it's going to be cold and it's going to be snow, and snows a lot. You're choosing everything that comes with that, And so it doesn't feel, when I think about my relationship and things we've navigated, the ups and downs and the stuff that has showed up, it's like, oh yeah, this is work. But then I also know that, okay, but I knew it. Like when the work shows up, or when he does something and I'm like, oh, you did that. I'm like, yeah, but I chose that work. I knew this was going to be a thing, moving forward. Yeah. Hailey, oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. What advice do you have for the ladies? Since you did it in 4 months on the apps. Give us your best tips.
I think it is the business tip that I've talked about a little bit during this episode, but it's just decide you're going to be successful no matter what. And you
Mm.
just then keep choosing the different channels and testing stuff for you to get to your success. It's like a minimum viable offer, or like testing a new app or something is like, well, yeah, we're just going to keep doing it and then iterating on it until we figure out how it fits.
Yeah, we keep optimizing. Okay, this worked.
Yeah, this part
Let's
worked.
keep that part.
Yeah, this part, I will never do it again. I will never be meeting up with someone who's 7 years younger than me. This man was like drinks and then dinner and then dancing. I was like, sir, I'm tired. No, thank you. So
Like my bedtime is like 8:45.
yeah, bruh, you planned it a whole night. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Could you please tell the listeners just a little bit about the work that you do? So if there's anyone listening who needs that kind of work, that kind of help, they can reach out to you, and tell them where to reach out to you as well.
Yes. So you can find me all over the internet at oyfn.co. This stands for 1 year from now. There's a podcast. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and there's a newsletter. And any entrepreneurs that are really hoping to better build a career for themselves as an entrepreneur. So we're making good money. They do fulfilling work. They're not just doing one thing, but they're like, I've got things I want to build. Hit me up and I can help you navigate both the business strategy of building out new assets and also the emotional and relationship strategy you need to kind of make sure your life supports your goals and your goals support your life.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Hailey. We really, really appreciate this conversation. I know, like, I just learned so much. I think what I really took away from it was just language for like stuff that I had like thought about and tried to say. You're like, oh my God, she said it so well.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, listeners, I hope you enjoyed Hailey's conversation as much as I did. I want to thank you for your time and attention today. And a quick reminder, if you have not downloaded the replay of the 7 texts you need to connect with great men, dating on the apps or dating in real person, go to the show notes and download that, watch it. You will love it. It's one of my, I feel like it's the best thing I've done in 2023 was that workshop. So make sure you go and get it. I'm very proud of it. I think you enjoyed it. It is free, so you can just pop in your email and get the replay. And I just want to thank you for your time and attention, and we'll see you next time.